The 4 things that kill your value in front of a man, ladies. I'm going to tell you something today that might sting a little, but it'll save you months, if not years, of heartbreak. Let's talk about value, not the kind that depends on how you look, what you wear, or how much attention you get. I'm talking about the real kind, the value a man feels when he's around you. That magnetic pull that makes him think, she's the one I'm not letting go. And yet, there are 4 silent assassins, 4 habits that sneak in and kill your value before you even realize it. Let's unpack them. You meet someone and instantly feel a spark. The conversations flow, the butterflies flutter, and suddenly it feels like this could really go somewhere. It's exciting, it's hopeful, and without even realizing it, you start investing. You text first, you text again. You plan the date, offer to drive, pick the restaurant, maybe even pay. You clear your schedule. You make time, space, and mental energy for someone who, frankly, hasn't yet earned that level of access to your life. And while your intention might be genuine, to show you care, to build something real, the message it sends can be the opposite of what you hope for. Here's the problem when you give too much, too soon. You teach someone to expect the rewards of commitment without requiring the actual commitment. That creates a dangerous imbalance. You're treating him like a priority, but you're still sitting in his maybe category. And whether he consciously realizes it or not, he begins to associate your time, your energy, your presence with something he didn't have to work for. And what we don't work for, we don't value. Men, and people in general, are wired to value things they earn. Think about how you feel when you've worked for something, whether it's a career milestone, a fitness goal, or something as simple as assembling furniture from scratch. You feel invested. You feel proud. You care more about it because you put something of yourself into it. Relationships are no different. When someone has to put in effort to get to know you, to plan time with you, to slowly peel back the layers of your life, it builds emotional investment. It builds value. It builds respect. Overinvesting too early robs the other person of that process. It rushes the connection without building the foundation. It says, here I barely know you, but I'm already putting you at the center of my world. And even if you're doing it out of excitement or enthusiasm, it often ends up coming across as desperation. That sounds harsh, but it's true. It looks like you're trying to win him over by doing the most, rather than sitting back and letting him reveal who he really is. And if he's even worth that effort in the first place. This doesn't mean you should play games or pretend not to care. It just means pacing your emotional investment. Let it build naturally, let it match his energy, and let it unfold over time. Don't pour your whole heart to someone who's only offered you a sip of theirs. If you value yourself, your time, and your energy, you'll naturally hold back from giving until you know what's actually in front of you. Because someone who's truly interested won't need to be convinced. They'll show up. They'll match you. They'll want to earn the right to be closer to you. But they can't do that if you give it all away at the start. We all want to feel wanted. We all crave that feeling of knowing someone is thinking about us, missing us, choosing us. But there's a very fine line between healthy connection and constant validation seeking. And once you cross it, you start losing the very thing you're trying to protect, your value in his eyes. When you need him to reassure you constantly, to prove his interest day after day, to affirm that he still likes you, still wants you, still sees you the same way, what you're really saying is, I don't trust what we've built. I don't trust myself. And that's where attraction starts to erode. Here's the truth that no one really talks about. Confidence isn't about being the loudest, the most flirtatious, or the most unbothered. It's about being secure in your own skin. It's the quiet certainty that says, I don't need you to tell me I'm amazing for me to believe I am. And ironically, it's that energy that draws people in the most. When you radiate a sense of self-assurance, when you show that your world doesn't revolve around whether he texts you back within 10 minutes, that's when he starts seeing you as someone worth pursuing, not because you're cold or distant, but because your self-esteem isn't held hostage by his attention. When you seek constant reassurance, whether it's through endless texting, fishing for compliments, or subtle tests to get a reaction, you put him in a position he never asked for. You make him responsible for your emotional stability. And let's be real, and that's a heavy weight to carry in any dynamic, especially early on. No one wants to feel like they're walking on eggshells, like every response or lack of one could trigger a meltdown. That pressure kills the natural, easy flow of connection. It turns what could have been fun and exciting into something that feels like a job. It's not about never needing reassurance. We all have our vulnerable moments. But the key difference lies in how you handle those moments. Are you checking in with yourself first, calming your own anxiety, reminding yourself of your worth before you go looking for answers from him? Or are you outsourcing your self-worth, hoping that if he says the right thing, it'll make you feel whole again? Men are drawn to women who can hold space for themselves emotionally. It's incredibly attractive when someone can say, "I miss you, but I'm good. I care about you, but I'm not falling apart." That kind of energy doesn't just make him feel safe. It makes you feel powerful, because instead of needing him to constantly prove his feelings, you're standing in the strength of knowing who you are with or without him. And that's when reassurance becomes a bonus, not a lifeline. When he tells you he wants you, it's sweet, not survival, because you already knew you were worth wanting. You see the signs. He takes hours or even days to respond to messages. He cancels plans last minute without much explanation. He talks a big game but rarely follows through. He's inconsistent with his attention. Hot one week, cold the next. Deep down, you feel something's off. But instead of confronting that feeling, you start rationalizing it. He's just been really busy. He's afraid of getting hurt. He's been through a lot. You cling to the potential of who he could be instead of accepting who he actually is. And that's where you begin to lose your value, not just in his eyes, but in your own. There's a difference between empathy and self-abandonment. Understanding someone's wounds is one thing. Excusing their bad behavior to keep the fantasy alive is another. When you ignore red flags, you're essentially saying, "My standards don't matter as long as you stay." You teach someone that they can give you crumbs and you'll stick around waiting for the loaf. But here's the truth. When someone is truly interested and emotionally available, their actions won't confuse you. You won't need to decode mixed signals or make excuses on their behalf. You'll see consistency, effort, and care. When you don't, that's your sign. Attraction isn't just about chemistry. It's also about self-respect. If you're constantly negotiating with yourself, trying to convince your gut that what it's sensing isn't real, you start shrinking. You dim your voice, silence your needs, and become more invested in keeping the story going than protecting your peace. And here's where it backfires. The more you ignore the red flags, the more he sees that you're willing to settle for less, that you'll tolerate poor behavior as long as he throws in a compliment or an apology now and then, that you want him more than you want clarity. And that's when the power dynamic shifts. Because instead of being someone he's trying to impress, you become someone he can keep on standby. We sometimes think walking away means giving up, but in reality, it's an act of power. It means you trust yourself enough to know what doesn't feel right. You trust your standards more than your fear of being alone. You know that a relationship should feel safe, not like a puzzle you're constantly trying to solve. You understand that your time is valuable and shouldn't be spent waiting for someone to finally be who you hoped they were. Ignoring red flags doesn't keep the connection alive. It just delays the heartbreak. And every time you stay when you know you should go, you send a message to yourself that your boundaries are flexible, that your gut isn't trustworthy, and that discomfort is the price of love. But the truth is, real love doesn't require you to lose yourself. It invites you to be seen fully, heard completely, and respected consistently. Anything less is a red flag you can't afford to ignore. There's something undeniably magnetic about someone who knows who they are. Confidence isn't just in the way you look or speak. It's in how grounded you are in your values, your passions, your life. But when you start molding yourself to fit into someone else's world, you chip away at that magnetism. Maybe it starts small. You pretend to like a certain band because he's into it. You agree with his opinions even when they conflict with your own. You start showing up in a way that feels curated, polished, safe, hoping he'll like you more, choose you, see you as his type. But what actually happens is that the person he's connecting with isn't fully you. And in the process of trying to be what he wants, you lose the very thing that made you valuable in the first place in your authenticity. It's easy to fall into this trap, especially when you really like someone and want it to work. You might think, if I'm more agreeable, more low maintenance, more what he's looking for, he'll stick around. But here's what often goes unnoticed when you water yourself down to be palatable, you stop standing out, you become easy to be around, sure, but also easy to forget. Because no one builds a deep connection, someone who's constantly adapting, constantly shape-shifting, constantly hiding parts of themselves to be more liked. The irony is, the most attractive people are the ones who don't apologize for who they are. They have opinions. They have quirks. They say, "This is me. And I hope you like it, but if you don't, that's okay too." That's the kind of energy that makes someone lean in and think, wow, this person is different. Not because they're trying to be, because they're not trying at all. They're just being. And that kind of presence is rare. When you betray your own interests, needs, or boundaries to keep someone close, it might work temporarily, but it's not sustainable. Eventually, you either burn out from constantly performing, or he senses that something is off. The connection starts to feel hollow, like it's missing depth. And that's because it is. You can't build something real on a version of you that isn't real. Being authentic doesn't mean being difficult or rigid. It means showing up with honesty and allowing someone to truly see you, even if that means they don't choose you. And yes, that's scary, but it's far scarier to be chosen for a version of you that isn't true. Because then, no matter how much attention or affection you get, it'll never feel satisfying. You'll always wonder, would he still want me if he knew the real me? And that doubt is exhausting. The right person wants a projection of perfection. They'll want your depth, your weirdness, your contradictions, your truth. So if you want to maintain your value, don't dilute yourself. Don't shrink to fit. Let them meet you as you are, because that's the only way to be truly loved. There's a certainty of energy that people gravitate toward, one that feels light, magnetic, and emotionally free. But when your entire world starts revolving around him, the energy starts to shift. You become overly available, constantly waiting, endlessly focused on what he's doing, saying, thinking. And before you realize it, the vibrant, full life you once had starts to shrink down to the size of one person. You stop doing the things that once lit you up. You cancel plans just in case he wants to see you. You lose touch with your hobbies, your friends, your independence. And that's where the danger lies, not just in what you lose externally, but in how your self-worth starts to slowly erode from the inside out. A woman with her own life, her own goals, her own joy is captivating. She's not waiting by the phone or constantly refreshing a conversation. She's out there living. And that doesn't make her unavailable. It makes her valuable because she doesn't need him to fill every emotional gap in her life. She wants him, sure, but she doesn't build her existence around him. That distinction is powerful, and it's what keeps the dynamic healthy, balanced, and full of mutual respect. When you stop living for yourself, you unintentionally send the message that you don't have much going on beyond him. And while that might feel like deep devotion, it often comes across as pressure or even desperation. Men, just like anyone, are drawn to people who have a sense of purpose. When he sees that you're passionate about your work, that you're excited about your weekend plans, that you have friends who lift you up and things that challenge you, he sees someone who adds value to his life, not someone who's hoping he becomes her whole world. That doesn't mean you can't prioritize the relationship. Of course you can, but it means you're not abandoning your identity to do it. You're not sacrificing the parts of you that make you whole. When everything starts revolving around him, you create an unhealthy imbalance. He becomes the sun and you start orbiting around him. But what happens when he pulls away even slightly? Your entire emotional state collapses because you've placed all your happiness in his hands. That's too much weight for any person to carry. And that kind of emotional dependency creates tension, not intimacy. You don't keep someone by making them the center of your universe. You keep them by continuing to build a life so full and rich that they feel lucky to be part of it. A life that's already beautiful before they entered, and still beautiful if they ever leave. That's the kind of energy that makes someone want to stay. Not because you need them, but because you're so whole within yourself that being with you feels like a gift, not an obligation. When you maintain your sense of self, your independence, your spark, that's when you truly hold your value and no one can take it from you. So here's the truth: your value isn't something you have to prove to anyone. It's something you protect. And the moment you start compromising that value by ignoring red flags, chasing validation, becoming someone you're not, or centering your life around someone else, you start chipping away at the very thing that makes you magnetic in the first place. A truly fulfilling connection doesn't require you to shrink. It doesn't demand silence when your gut is screaming or sacrifice when your soul is starving. The right person will never make you feel like you have to earn their affection at the cost of yourself. You don't have to play games. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to show up as you, unapologetically, honestly, and fully. Your standards are not too high, your feelings are not too much, and your desire to be respected, cherished, and seen isn't a burden, it's a birthright. So don't give a heart away to someone who hasn't earned the right to hold it with care. Don't settle for someone who only shows up when it's convenient. And don't ever believe that being chosen by someone else is more important than choosing yourself first. Thank you so much for giving me your time and attention today. I hope this message reminded you of how powerful, worthy, and irreplaceable you truly are. Never forget, you are the prize. Keep showing up as the most authentic version of you, and the right person won't just notice it, they'll respect it, pursue it, and protect it. Take care, stay true to yourself, and as always, thank you for being here.